So, yeah, we will be ready in a minute or in a second. This is the fourth talk today and the fourth Nuxt talk today. So, interesting. Well, if someone in this city and in this community is working hard and his visible face is this guy here, one of the big three I mentioned in the introduction, and the triple A, by the way, because he's a triple A. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Is this guy, Alex Jover. He worked really hard for, making this possible. I really want to publicly appreciate this effort. And he's also kind of a famous person in the Vue world. So, yeah, I think we don't really need a presentation for this crack, as we say. Alex Jover.
Thank you very much, Jose. Ooh, thank you very much. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm very happy to organizing this event with all these amazing guys. This is so huge for us to do this. I mean, I think we all didn't expect to do what we are seeing right now here. And we don't have any stats on where do you come from. So, okay, let's raise some hands. Who is coming from Alicante? Raise your hand. Oh, whoa, that's a big bunch. Elche. Okay, I'm sorry. Madrid? Okay, a lot of people as well. Barcelona? Murcia? Oh, sorry, Murcia? Okay, a few guys as well. Finland? Yes, Germany? Poland? Oh, Poland. Mallorca? Oh, Poland as well. Okay, I see there are people from everywhere. That's cool. So, okay, also, before starting my talk, I want to say that normally here in Alicante Frontend, we always give talks with the mindset of having fun. So that's something is always into our events. And I have to say, we are not having so much fun today. You're very quiet. So what we are going to do right now, I'm not sure if this is going to work. I want you to help me to have a very nice memory about this. So I want you all to do a Vue wave. Okay? So this is going to work like this. You know what's a wave, right? Like, woo! But we have to make the Vue shape. And I'm not sure how it's going to work with the light. But it has to start from here, Jose. Be careful those people with the cameras. And it has to go like this. Okay? I promise after this will come the talk, but if you don't do this, I'm not gonna make any talk. So let's make one first attempt. Okay, I'm gonna say Vue wave, and then you have to do it while I say it. 1, 2, 3. Vue wave. Awesome. Now is the time to record it. Then I can send it to my mom. Okay, I think it's visible. Awesome. Okay, people, ready? 3, 2, 1. Vue wave. Awesome. An applause, please. Thank you very much. Oh, that's a spoiler. Okay, some more fun before starting the talk, because my last talk was in React Alicante in the last conference they made, and I went there with a Vue Day t-shirt. And I survived. So I thought, okay, maybe today I had to come with a React Alicante t-shirt. But, no. I'm sorry, React guys. I know you were expecting that, but no. And I'm especially happy because Sebastian is here, and if you don't know it, he's a very good shuffle dancer. And he started dancing in the Vue Amsterdam stage. So this is real. But you should know I'm also a dancer, bachata dancer. And fuck, the video is not working. Anyway, let's suppose I'm dancing in there. So, Sebastian, where are you? There you are. No worries. I'm not going to make you dance here today, basically because I also need a partner to dance, not like you. But Sebastian, I challenge tonight to a dancing battle. Do you accept the challenge? Okay, a challenge tonight. And, okay. Live streaming of the dance, yeah, for sure. You had to compare tonight. So this is the slide I usually use to introduce myself. Blah, blah. But I think it's too boring, so I made this followers decision journey. So if you are into hot, Vue, Nuxt, and JS tips, follow Vue Jobs, which is a newsletter I built some time ago. If you're interested into my work, or you need training or consultancy about Vue, performance, testing, whatever, follow me on Twitter. If you are into communities and talks, please follow our communities' Twitters here, Alicante Front and Vue Day. We would be very happy if you come to talk to Alicante Frontend. We could cover your expenses, and we will have some fun, as today. Okay? And if you are into dancing and stupid humor, you could follow me on Instagram. That's all I have in there. And just 1 second of promotion. If you know my book about testing Vue components, I have to say that 2 days ago, I released a course version of this book in educative.io. I suggest you to check it out. There are some free lessons, I guess. It's interactive. It has exercises and runnable tests. So let me know if you like it. OK, let's go to the talk. Wow, finally. I have 10 minutes left now. So we're going to talk today about a case study of building a huge Nuxt application for an e-commerce. And this particular project is a Sprinter, the storefront of a Sprinter. So for those who you don't know it, Sprinter is one of the biggest Spanish e-commerce websites for sports, along with Decathlon. And we recently rebuilt the website using Nuxt. So usually an e-commerce works like this. So you will have these 3 layers, the front end, the back end, and the middleware. But let's say we can group them into different applications, the front store and the back store. The front store is the website that the users see. Okay, so the one that you're using when you are going to buy something, the card, all the stuff, that's the front store. And the back store is the CMS that the administrators of that e-commerce use for adding content, setting the navigation, and all that stuff. Of course, we are going to focus in this talk on the front store, which is the Nuxt part. So we made a progressive web app using Nuxt. There is an API also using Node.js and Express, also Redis and Elasticsearch and other things that make it fast, like very fast. And some characteristics that this website has compared to other single-page applications is that the website is public, okay, with some private sections or pages. So SEO is very important here. Also, there is no routes in the front end. So all pages, navigation, and routes are defined by the backstore, the CMS. And it uses several integration scripts with other third-party systems. So after rebuilding it with these technologies, here are some stats. So since we built it in a front-end technology that uses server-side rendering, but it's still front-end, and an SPA at the end when it reaches the browser, the server instances needed for this website went down from 120 to 17. And that saves a lot of money, really. And to make you aware of how big this website is, these are some stats of the last Black Friday's campaign. So we had 112,000 requests per second. We have 18,500 simultaneous users and 116 million users in 5 days. So be careful when you build something like this and have your suitcase prepared and your own private jet to fly from your home. Okay, so what I want you to learn from this talk is not some techniques, because the other speakers like Marina, David, they're going to talk about very specific details on how to apply some techniques. But instead, I'm going to show you here how we solve things we faced building this product. Okay. So, of course, I guess one of the most difficult things was to build the routing system. Because as I said, we don't have routes in the front end. Literally, the Nuxt application has two routes, the home and what we call the master route. So basically, the master route component is the one that is going to handle the routing of Sprinter. It works by loading a different component depending on the template, which is set on the backstore. And we'll get into that, okay? But the thing is, we apply lazy loading and code splitting. Otherwise, it could be crazy, because you know this website has hundreds of pages, and each page is a different JavaScript chunk. So imagine all together in one file. So that wouldn't work. And also, SEO is handled here. So probably with this you understand it better. So when a user enters the website, okay, the Nuxt application is going to call the API saying, hey, this user wants to enter the route /black-shoes. So that's going to return an object with the SEO data, with the data of the page, and with the page metadata. And in there we will see the template. And according to that template, we have to implement a component in the front end to make able to render that template. So a very small version of this routing system, it would be something like this. So we have a component tag, which is a special tag from Vue for loading dynamically a component, depending on a condition. And it's linked to this component computer property, which will load the component defined by the template that we have in this map. So basically, we have a key in this map for each of the templates that we define in the backstore. And each of them, they will be loaded by this function returning the result of the dynamic import, which is the way Vue applies code splitting and lazy loading. Of course, this component is more complex than this, but this is like the main mechanics of it. Okay, so another issue we faced is that the administrators of Sprinter, they could define pages, custom pages on their own in the CMS. And they could even put Vue components in there. So we received that in the front end as a string. And we needed a way to interpret and run Vue code on the front end. So let's say we needed some kind of VHTML, but that also understands Vue code. So because of that, we created Vue runtime template. And I want to make a point here, because it's been really hard lately to find time to maintain the project. So if any of you use it and want to lend a hand, talk to me later. And yeah, I would be very happy if I have some help on this. Okay, so it works like this. Basically, Vue runtime template is a component that takes a template as a property. And that template can have Vue code, as we see this app message component here, and the string interpolation. And just like that, it would work. Very similar API to the VHTML directive. It has some limitations, of course, because let's say Vue was not prepared for that at the beginning. I mean, it's something to be compiled, you know. But yeah, just read the GitHub repo, and you will find some details in there. This was also the other big thing to face. So server-side rendering. Server-side rendering is great, and Nuxt does most of the things for you. But it also introduces a lot of complications, because you have even another layer. Probably the biggest problem of server-side rendering is that you have to develop with a server-side rendering in mind. And with that, I mean, there are a lot of APIs and modules that they work only in the front end or on the back end. And you have to make sure what you do is going to work on both, or restrict it to work only on one part. So some examples. It's, for example, the HTTP module. In the front end, we have the fetch API, or the Ajax object. And on the server, we have the request API, but they are totally different. Okay. Not only that, but also the cookies are handled differently in the front end and the server. The HTTP headers proxy, authentication, and more stuff. Another example is the storage. So in the front end, we have IndexedDB, WebSQL, local storage, session storage. But in the back end, yeah, you have databases, Redis, and they are even for different purposes. So depending on what you want to do, you have to do it in one part or another. And of course, if you have done server-side rendering, you will see that there are a lot of third-party components and libraries that are not ready, because they were not designed with a server-side rendering in mind. There are more examples. These are just a few. And just for these examples, we solved it. The HTTP module, I'm just going to say, use Nuxt Axios module, because it does a lot of things for you already. Otherwise, you have to care about many different things. For the storage, we use local forage, which is a very cool library that lets you use IndexedDB, WebSQL, and local storage. Very important if you are doing producing web apps for asynchronously storing big piece of data. But it wasn't working on the server. It was crashing. Maybe now it's working. I'm not sure if they fixed it. So we made a self-made storage model to avoid it from crashing on the server. And for third-party components and libraries, we use a pattern that I call adaptive components. That I talk about this in some talks, like in Budapest and here in Alicante as well, with Coosto. Yay. And well, if you want me to talk about this, invite me to talk. And I'm not going to explain it here. And we also do componentization. I'm not sure how to say this word, so I'm better going to explain it. If you use libraries, one of those like widgets, like the Carbonats widgets or whatever, that you just drop in your website, you link it to an HTML element, and they work by themselves. Well, when you're using Nuxt or Vue, you have components, and it's very cool if you can make a component that wraps this library. And even better, if that components can handle the loading of that script, because normally they come from a CDN or other resources, that would be great. So this is an example of how we handle this. Basically, we have the template with the HTML element that this library is going to link to. That depends on the library. And we have a load script function here that will be the one that loads the library. And we have a loaded state outside of the component, so then it's global for all components. And as soon as this library loads, this component, that state is going to change, and it's going to be loaded only once. If you want to have an example of the load script function, you can just copy-paste this. It works, I can assure you. I'm not going to get into it, okay? But this is exactly the same code that Google Analytics or other libraries, they give to you to load the library. And the cool part of that is that if you do that, you can use it wherever you want in the application, even in several parts, just by adding the component tag like any other component. So it makes it very easy and reusable to use. Okay, this is a funny one. And this can happen to anyone which is using code splitting and lazy loading. In general, it doesn't have to do server-side rendering. So I'm going to try to explain the case, because it can be a bit hard to understand. Let's say a user enters your web page, okay? And it loads the index.html with several references to several JavaScript files and chunks that you created, okay? Then, in the meanwhile, you do a new deployment. And that deployment is going to create different JavaScripts, right? So once you do that, if the user doesn't reload the page, and tries to access a page that hasn't visited, that JavaScript is not going to be there because you have replaced it with the new ones. But the index HTML that is in the browser is still pointing to the old ones. And we learn that by practice. So then this happens. The app goes boom, and this is you as the developer running from your application. So there are two ways to solve this. One is you can use a CDN, so you can keep also the old JavaScript files, okay? And the other solution, which is the one we took, is to do the following. So in Nuxt, you have layouts, and you have an error layout. And what you can do is, in the mounted hook, you can catch that error using these regular expressions, because it's a Webpack error. And when that happens, you just have to reload the page. Then the new index HTML with the new references pointing to the right JavaScript files will be there, and it will work. Okay, so this is my favorite part of this talk, because I'm really passionate about web performance, and this is something we wanted to do in a Sprinter and achieve the max performance as possible. Oh. Come on, it's plugged in. Do we still have light here? Hey, for real, this is not working. Maybe it's not switch on. Oh. Lo tengo ahí en la mochila. Mírate. Okay, so this is not planned. It's not for fun, okay? But I'm pretty sure you're having fun now. Espera. Wait, it's working. It's working. Don't touch. Don't touch. Go. Okay. You haven't seen anything. We are back from 1 minute ago. And, okay, talking about performance. When you do performance, you have to know which kind of performance test are you doing. And there are several of them. So for the front end, we have what I call the real performance. So the one that you can have metrics about it, like the page load, the runtime performance, and also the bundle optimization, which is forgotten a lot of times. And the perceived performance, which is the one that you can achieve by the UX that you implement. So using animations, transitions, progressive loading, the use of placeholders. But when you are doing server-side rendering, you have to take into account that there is a server as well rendering the page the first time the user enters. And you can perform concurrency tests as well, and memory heap tests. So let's go through them. For the page load performance, the best thing you can do is use code splitting and lazy loading. You all should be using that. And Nuxt does that by default when you use pages. So, and it does that for a reason. So trust the Nuxt guys, because they know what they are doing. Also, we lazy load the images and compress them. And here's a funny one. So a lot of people is using resource hints, so preload and prefetch, thinking that they're going to make your app faster. And they can, but they may not. And in our case, it wasn't working very well. Because preload and prefetch, when you has a lot of JavaScript files that have to load at the beginning, it makes the page load slower. So I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying analyze and try with and without, and see for your application what works better. So this is the case of the resource hints. And well, I have to say the metrics looks very low. But so yeah, we have work to do in here for sure. But you have to be also relative when you measure, because it's not the same to measure a small website, a static website, or a huge e-commerce. So these are the mobile stats, and it's really hard with a website like that to get a very, very good performance. Anyway, what you can see up there is that the first contentful paint and the meaningful paint, it was around 5 seconds using preload and prefetch. And when we disabled them, it went down to 2 seconds, which is a huge improvement. Also, the estimated input latency went down by the half. So that was good. That was good, and it was just one line code change. So that was great. Another technique we use is dynamic rendering. And this is something I remember some time ago that Nuxt was going to implement out of the box. I'm not sure right now, so I'll talk to you later. But this is a concept that Google introduced in last year's Google.io, and it's something in between an SPA and server-side rendering. So what dynamic rendering stands for is to give the user agent what it wants, meaning that if a user is visiting your web page, the user doesn't care about SEO. Okay? The user cares about the best user experience that they can have when they visit your page. What cares about SEO is Google, the search engines, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. So basically, what this does is, depending on the user agent that is visiting your page, you're going to give them a server-side rendering, like fully rendered, or if it's a user, just an SPA or hybrid rendering. So for example, rendering from the server just the menu or the shell, and the rest from the client. That's up to you. And the way we achieve this is by building this component. So I'm also not going to get into the details. You will have the slides later, okay? But in short, this is a very similar component to no SSR that the Nuxt has, with the additional condition of this isBot that we use from the library. Very cool. So basically, the way to use this is this. So the content that you put inside the dynamic rendering component is going to be rendered only on the client or on the server when it's a bot, but not for a user. So it's there, it's free, you can use it. Talking about runtime performance, this is something you will do when you feel like an interaction is not fast enough. And you will do that using the performance dev tools from Chrome, for instance. And this is a case we had. So when we were changing the routes, when we were navigating, we felt like it was not fast enough, at least not as fast as we thought it could be. And after performing some analysis on this, we found out that the routes were rendering twice. So this is one render, and this is another render. And well, of course, there was a bug in our code on this master route, because all navigation goes through that, so it's a very sensible component. But after we fix it, yeah, just one render happens, and yeah, it was twice faster than it used to be. So yeah, some tests about runtime performance are always good. Okay, talking about bundle optimization. If you're using Nuxt 2, and thanks to Webpack 4, you shouldn't care very much about it, because the optimizations are there for you already out of the box. But we were using Nuxt 1.4. And in any case, it's always good to analyze. And for that, I suggest you to use bundle body and Webpack Analyzer, which is built in Nuxt with that command. And when we did a bundle body test after a while, we found out the following. So what you see in the left side, hola, is that, come on. Oh, Fernando, stop joking. So the brown and red circles are the ones that that it's saying for us that it's bad, because your code is repeated. There are a lot of code share between multiple dependencies, and that's what it happens when you do chunking out of the box, because each dependency, each entry point, is built with all the dependencies. But we applied a technique called common chunking here, which Webpack 4 does out of the box, and even better. And that's what you can see in the after screenshot. So all was blue, which means your code is very well structured, as well as the chunks. And talking about some numbers, we saw that the 2 main routes went down from almost 500 kilobytes to less than 300. And especially the 3 main layouts we have from more than 200 to less than 10 kilobytes, which is like 1,000% improvement. So this was also a great discovery. We did this basically with this code that I'm not going to get into it very much as well, but in the Nuxt config, you can change the Webpack configuration using the stem function from the build program. This code, no, it's okay. And with this code, yeah, that will happen. So there is a lot of information on the internet about this. Search for it if you're interested, or just use Nuxt 2 or 3 even. Okay, be mindful when rendering when you are be mindful about rendering when you are using server-side rendering, because the render problems happen both in client and server. If it takes a second to render in the client and another in the server, and you reduce this by the half, it will affect both sides. So it's an improvement in both sides as well. So we had a case that we made a huge improvement as well, that the main menu in Sprinter, it has a lot of submenus. And even though they were not visible, they were rendered, basically by using vshow instead of vif. Which means that the page was taking 2.5 seconds with CPU throttled and all that stuff, but it was taking too long to render. And after we fixed this, it went down to less than a second, which is 3.24 improvement. That's in the client, doing a runtime performance. But, as I said, it also improves in the backend, because the first render happens in the backend. And imagine if you have, like, we had like 100,000 requests per second. Yeah, that's critical. So this is a concurrency test made on the server, which basically it performs 200 calls with 10 of concurrency, basically using this command, which I think it was built in Mac. It's a patch bench. And the results were, before fixing it, that with 50% load of the server, it was taking 2.5 seconds, and until almost 4 seconds. And after fixing it, it was from less than a second to less than 1.5 seconds. And again, 2.67 improvement. And this was very noticeable. Okay, another thing. When you do concurrency test, you should check the memory heap as well. Because Node doesn't create a new instance on every request, like other languages like PHP does. So the memory leaks can accumulate. And we had a case of an event bus that we created that was sharing, it had the same instance during the Node process, but on every request we were keeping adding events, and we didn't realize about it. And after a while, after some hours, the application crashed every time. And after analyzing this, I found out the following. So I was running a concurrency test like the one you showed before, like 200 calls, blah, blah, and taking a memory snapshot every time I ran a test. So after 200 calls, the memory was at almost 400 megabytes, which is okay for an Nuxt application. Then 500, 650, and almost a gigabyte after like 500 or 600 calls from the server. And then I realized we had this $bus here taking all the memory. So this is something else that we found, and as soon as we killed the bus, the application went to normal again. And I wanted to say that the best of this project, at least for me, and for all the projects of the world, is just not the code, but is the people behind working on it, So I want to make a shout out for the Sprinter team and the Nitsnets team that should be around here somewhere. I see some people there. So please give them an applause. Brave guys. And you know, this is the last part. And this is something we started to build after Sprinter because we learned a lot on that project by pain and by pressure. But we are very proud of what we did and the solution we found. So we were putting all of that into practice from clean, from scratch in a project. So we had the idea to do a CLI for creating new projects. And we started to do Horn CLI. And Horn CLI is a fork of Vue CLI adapted for Nuxt. And it's meant to boost developer productivity. It's part also of the Unicorn project, which I cannot talk very much now about it, but maybe next year we will show you even something better. But I'm going to show you the CLI. So the CLI basically has all the Vue CLI features, like the powerful plugin system, which is great. But we added more things on it. So for example, it can modify Nuxt configuration. We do that by using AST, abstract syntax trees. So basically you can add, remove modules, plugins, change middleware, add code, whatever. You can also build features that you can activate and deactivate. And you can create projects using seeds with different seeds using Egghead as a template. So I don't have very much time to do live coding here, and it takes a while because it has to do a lot of dependency installing and that stuff. But I recorded some videos. So this is the way we create a project, an Nuxt project. So we say horn create, blah, blah, blah. It's going to ask you some questions, depending on which kind of website are you going to build. And then it will install different dependencies and configurations, depending on what are you going to do. Another example for activating a feature, we will do it like this. So I talked about this master route we had in Sprinter, and that's something we're going to use in several projects. So we made that a feature in the CLI. So basically, if you have a Nuxt project and you want to use that feature, you say horn activate unicorn router, and then it will add the page or the router, and it will link it in the Nuxt configuration. So you don't have to do anything. In the same way, you can deactivate it, and it will remove it from the configuration and the page. And there, the equivalent to the Vue CLI plugins, we call them bundles. We're still thinking about the name, but for now we call them bundles. And they can do pretty much everything. They can install new dependencies, modify Nuxt configuration, do scripting, a lot of things. So we have some bundles like authentication, like internationalization testing that we can just install, and it makes all the configurations and link it all together, and then you can start using it on our Nuxt projects. And here I show the UI components bundle that we have. So basically we have a UI library set that we want to use from the source code, and it's themable. So you can choose the theme that you want to use with the library. Each theme has different HTML and CSS, and basically this bundle is going to put all that together in all the components, depending on the theme you choose. So Horn CLI is not open source yet. We started working on it recently, and for now it's for our case. I'm not sure if at some point it will be. I'm not sure if it's going to be the future of Nuxt CLI. So maybe you can help me convince my boss. It's under the stages. But of course, maybe we can share some knowledge also with the Nuxt team. So because we learned a lot doing this, and it's working pretty well for us so far. It's boosting developers' productivity, and it saves. You know, I love Nuxt because it's very simple. You don't have to do many things. I was talking about it yesterday with Debbie, that, for example, you want a progressive web app. You install the module, you link it, that's all. You have the progressive web app. So we want to go a step further and not even have to touch the configuration. Just install something and it's there, working. So this is the mission of this CLI. And well, yeah, the CLI is not for sale yet. And I think we reached the end of the talk, so gracias. I'm not sure if we have time for questions. Do we? Ah, we do. Perfect.
Yeah, we do. Like, we're actually surprisingly good at timing.
Really?
Yeah, really good. So, yeah, he can. I
Good
cannot.
try.
So, yeah, if you have any questions for Alex, we have like 10 minutes. Otherwise, we will go for the next.
10 minutes?
Yeah, I see some hands there. So,
Really, 10 minutes?
this
I should have made more jokes at the beginning.
familiar face over here.
Hi, Alex.
Hey.
You mentioned that with the whole CLI, we'll be able to use most of use the plugin system of Vue CLI. But what will we use those plugins for? Because how I see it, how I understand it right now, there would be plugins to install Nuxt models to install Vue plugins. Or is there some other idea for using the plugin system in the Vue CLI in Horn CLI?
Okay, good question. Well, it's true that a lot of Vue plugins, they won't work in these projects because it's Nuxt. And for example, depending on what the plugin does, it could work or not. Some plugins, they change the vue.config file. Some others, they add things to the main.js file, which is not there in Nuxt. So, you cannot use all Vue's CLI plugins. But what I meant is that it has the same mechanisms than the Vue CLI plugin systems. So it allows you to use this kind of mechanisms to build your plugins for this Horn CLI, and they will work in a Nuxt project. So that's why this is an adaptation of this CLI for Nuxt and our case.
Okay, I think we had another question somewhere there, or maybe not. So, well, I think that's
No more
all. So, we have a question here, Sebastian.
Oh no. Oh.
Have you tried to fork as well the UI?
I thought about that, but not yet.
Okay.
We need more time.
Keep
for
us
that.
updated then.
Okay.
Do it.
No pressure. There is no pressure.
So, yeah, I think there is no more. Oh, yeah.
Question
That's the one I was looking for. Here.
Hi, Alex.
Hello.
My name is Pau. I'm a Magento developer. So I work on e-commerce, and as you may know, Magento 2.3 will be including PWA storefront.
Awesome.
And I wanted to ask you, what is the backend you used for Sprinter, and how was it developing a full functionality, front-end functionality for an e-commerce website like Sprinter? Because I guess that you will have, well, all the things that you might find in an e-commerce website with product variants or coupon codes and all that. So how was it developing? Did you develop everything from scratch, or you use some things that were already there for you?
Okay, to be honest, I don't know how is the backend built. So maybe we have some ideas from the guys there. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Magento, but I think it was some kind of CMS-like. But that's the back store, not the front store. So the front store has the API, which, yeah, we know about it, and also the fronted part of Nuxt. But I have no idea about the back store. So maybe later you can talk about the guys. They are around here, so they can give you more information about it.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so please give a
Oh, no, okay.
good
Thank you.
applause to Alex.